Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew and today we are doing another figure comparison. Today is the first part of a multiple series featuring the newcomer, you already know who it is, but let's introduce our contenders for today. Today we have two figures that are often compared to each other because one is a legacy figure, the other one is now a modern figure. Which figures am I talking about? Well, in this corner, standing the test of time, and from the very affordable one, what was once the most affordable 6-inch, 7-inch scale Godzilla figure line of all time, the NECA Godzilla 2019 V2 figure from Godzilla King and the Monsters. And in this corner, from the newest kid on the block, the highest quality Godzilla merch out there currently on the market, beating that of Tamashii Nations and Super 7 all at once. We've got the HIYA Toys Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, I know they're technically different incarnations of Godzilla, but they're similar enough to where they can go head to head. In fact, if you were to tell me this one was Godzilla vs. Kong, this one was King of the Monsters, and I had no idea about each figure brand, I'd probably believe you. So, with that being said, we're going to do a classic 7 rounder. If you don't know how this works, here's how it works. Sculpt and paint, articulation, size, accessories, price, availability, and packaging. We're going to go through all 7 of those categories and give a point-by-point blow basis kind of thing to figure out which figure is the superior figure. So round 1 is sculpt and paint, and honestly, it's closer than one would think. The sculpt in both aspects, as far as movie accuracy goes, they're practically even, because both of them use the actual CG model used in the movie as a basis, and then they just kind of go off from there. So they're pretty much on even playing field for that, so that's kind of where they kill each other out. However, it all boils down to the execution of it. And honestly, again, it is really close. But let's talk about it. The HIYA Toys features a very detailed sculpt with a lot of intricate little details that are found within the actual design, and some parts I didn't even know about. For example, I didn't actually know that there was so much cracks and crevices underneath Godzilla's arm right here, like the little wrinkles right here, which is found on the NECA version. It's just, I guess I kind of oversaw it. The head on both figures is it's actually very similar, but there is a slight winner here, and I'll explain. The HIYA, again, features a lot of nice detail, and very good detailing in the mouth as well. And the NECA features a lot of the same details, but with, of course, very mild less detail, as in, the overall execution of the sculpt. How I know this? Look at the teeth. The teeth here are much smaller than they are on the HIYA. And even though the figures are different scales, they are about similarly sized heads. Look at that. That's basically the same size head. And you can tell that there's a difference between the teeth molds. The NECA has very smaller teeth, while the HIYA has bigger teeth. And even though the mold on the spines is rather similar, as far as the paint job goes, movie accuracy hands down goes to the Playmates. I have the Playmates toys right beside me. The HIYA toys, I mean to say. It hands down goes to HIYA. The NECA has way too much blue in order for it to be considered movie accurate. Plus, it has these seeping veins that add extra color to it, so it gives a more stylized look, as well as just pouring in and bursting on energy. You can tell that if this was in the movie, then this would be the end of Ghidorah. No burning Godzilla needed here. Also, I will say that the NECA does have the better paint job when it comes to the overall chest, because even though both on the chest itself, it's rather neck and neck, the chest paint to the shoulder area transition on the HIYA makes it almost look more like he's wearing a vest, while here, it's actually transitioned really well, mixed in with some other blues, and so forth around the figure. Next, let's talk about the arms and legs, which on both figures, despite the fact that there is a bit of blue here and here, they're relatively about the same. They're in the same pose, they're in the same stance, so on and so forth. However, NECA's is a bit more shinier as far as the nails go, while this one is more grittier. And it also shows that these ones are more sharper as opposed to the NECAs being a tad bit more duller as far as the sharpness of the claws go. Which, if you remember my original review or unboxing, I commented about how sharp these guys' claws were. Nope, HIYA completely blows these things out of the water. These things are actually kind of jagged. So, but something that the HIYA has over the NECA is additional dry brushing across the sides, as well, where the NECA's lower shin and feet are completely blank as far as color goes. I will say that the NECA's is slightly a bit more movie accurate on the lower legs, but I like a bit more execution. Last part is the tail. And the HIYA Toys features more dry brushing on the tail to give it a more of a glowing effect. But the NECA achieves it better by having a shiny, darker blue paint application on the sides of it, in addition to the kind of blue, almost turquoise, Perry the Platypus color of spines here that are running on the top. And because these are actually reflective, it gives off more of a glowing feel. That being said, there really isn't a winner as to how they're executed, because both of them are done really well. Granted, he has pretty much chips here and there, but that's only because I've had this figure for so long, and 4 years. So, in 4 years' time, I guarantee this guy's gonna have a few paint chips, but really, it all boils down to one particular thing: stylization versus accuracy. That is basically the big draw here. The HIYA Toys has the better sculpt, but the NECA has the better paint job. The HIYA Toys has movie accuracy, but the NECA has stylization. And I love this stylization. I just fell in love with it over the years. But with that all being said, I thought long and hard about this. I really did. I sat down with these two figures, looked at their paint jobs, and really decided a winner. Tried to, at least. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to say it is a tie point. Had NECA had a bit worse of a paint application, then HIYA definitely would have schooled this one. However, NECA fought tooth and claw with the amount of paint that it had over HIYA's against its superb sculpt, and won out a tie. So it's a tie point for me. For articulation, which is round 2, both of them actually have a very similar amount. The HIYA and the NECA both feature a hinged jaw, which is pretty much self-explanatory, but something that HIYA has that the NECA doesn't is an articulated tongue. I don't believe any NECA Godzilla to date has ever had an articulated tongue, which is pretty much a plus for the HIYA. Both of them have the same amount of articulation in the head and neck, and I know it might seem like this, not like that because of the multiple segments, but all these are just literally sleeves to add a big barbell style ball joint from the head that connects all the way down to the neck, so you can attach the accessories. We'll get there. While the NECA features one ball joint here and another ball joint here that adds for some pretty good movement. I've seen better range on others, but 4 years later, this neck piece still won't move an inch. Like, it is perma stuck in there. Arm articulation as well. HIYA Toys has a ball joint here at the shoulder, hinge at the elbow. Again, still pretty stiff to move, and a swivel as well, and a swivel hinge at the wrist. NECA features the same exact thing with a ball joint here at the shoulder, hinge swivel at the elbow, and hinge swivel at the wrist. As far as the waist goes, again, both of them feature a singular ball joint here at the kind of waist diaphragm, and oddly enough, they're cut the same way. So we have like this one, which kind of swivels, ball joints kind of hips around a little bit, and gives you a decent range. It's more of like a rotation. While the NECA, again, as well, gives it a more of like a rotation. And I know on other figures, because like the V1, for example, can really get a good crunch. For some reason, I was never able to get that on this one, which is kind of weird to me. The leg articulation on the HIYA features a nice ball joint that actually you can go all the way around, has a double jointed knee, which allows for a good hinge bend, back in and back down, and has a pretty good ball jointed foot, while the NECA has a very good ball joint here at the hip, or hold on, okay, ball joint at the hip, hinged knees, and a ball jointed foot. I will say, as far as the range goes, they're pretty neck and neck, although HIYA's hip is definitely slightly better than the NECA hip, but the foot on the neck is like way better than the HIYA's. The HIYA tail has 9 segments running through from the base to the tip of the tail, and a lot of them are cut in the same way as of the NECA, and can go in a lot of different ways. Not so much up, but definitely down to the sides, pretty much any way you want it, unless it's like Godzilla vs. Hedorah where he flies away. And the NECA has a bit more range and actually has 10 joints. So that's one more tail joint. So again, it really boils down to how you feel. Points of articulation versus range. Because admittedly, the HIYA does in fact have some pretty good amount of joints, but especially in segments like the legs and the tail, I find myself more in range with, or having more amount of range with that of the NECA. And when you're posing a figure, you like range. It's not just about the points of articulation, because if you have too much, I'm not saying that this has too much, but to a degree, if you have too much of articulation, it tends to cancel each other out. And because I feel as if the NECA has a bit more range, I will say the head is like rather stiff. But aside from that, I find more range on this one than I do the HIYA by just a smidge, so the NECA is going to get this point. Round 3 is going to be size. Oh boy. I've got the winner already planned out, but you know what? Let me actually backlog to round 2 and actually give the point to HIYA. The reason why is because looking at it, like, really, I feel as if the reason I find more motion of range is because of it being, like, loosened up over time, with the exception of the neck, which I think is just stuck via paint. Like, this thing is not twisting off. Versus the HIYA, where you can get this, and you can't really do that with the NECA. You can look down like this, and you kind of can do that with the NECA. And, you know, you got, like, all of this extra articulation as far as, like, mobility goes. Yeah, I find a lot of good articulation on that. So it kind of evens it out, but I feel as if for the reason it has more articulation points, it's got to go to the HIYA. So back to round 3. Size. It's a close one, but honestly, it's got to go to the NECA, and I'll explain why. The reason why size goes to NECA is because all Godzilla figures have one trait in common. They are all shoulder-to-shoulder uniformed figures, and I'll prove my point right here, right now. Look at something like the Bandai Movie Monster Series Shin Godzilla. It is uniformed with the 2019 NECA Godzilla. Granted, it's a bit hunched over, but if you were to put him all the way up, he'd be about the same height. The 2014 Godzilla is proof of that. So, all of the Godzilla figures in a 6-inch scale, not bigger, would be about uniform. This is a new scale entirely, because he's slightly bigger than everything else. And granted, you can kind of fudge it to where it kind of gets a little smaller, but as it stands like this, which is its neutral stance, it stands taller than that of the NECA. And although it is very close to reaching 6 inches, it's advertised as 7 to 8-inch scale, not the 6-inch scale. Granted, it has its own line scale too, but that's its own line. This is this is about 6-inch consistency, shoulder to shoulder, head to head, hip to hip kind of thing. And when you factor that in, the NECA is the clear winner in that book. Next, we're going to talk about accessories, so let's go ahead and reposition everything. Now, the HIYA comes with an alternate head, an alternate neck piece, and an atomic breath part, its heat ray essentially, and it is a pretty long heat ray. So let's just kind of fit everything back into view right here. Looks pretty good. What does NECA come with? While it does also come with the tip of its tail unattached, we're not going to count it in as an accessory. But he comes with his own atomic breath part and a splash base. So let's talk about this. First, let's start with the NECA. How you attach the atomic breath has never been simpler. Even a kindergartner can figure this out. You just attach this atomic breath piece into Godzilla's mouth without the need of a stand, and that's it. It just sits there. Now, granted, you also have the option to kind of aim this slightly downward. Okay, hit the ground. And you kind of have the ability to use this to kind of almost look like it's hitting something. Or you can actually rest it up against something. So let's just say my hand's out there. It can hold its pose. So it can look like that. This is a great display. And honestly, I would pick this. I would really pick this. What seems to be the big downfall? Just watch this. You see how little effort that took? Compare that to something like the NECA Godzilla 89, where the heat ray is dug in there. Like, granted, I hit the table, but it's pretty much stuck in there. It's much more in there because of the peg. The Godzilla 2019 heat ray does not come with one of these pegs. It's just purely designed to jab in the mouth and hook onto the tongue. And that's it. Also, this splash base, it looks great, but like the mouth, it just rests in there. There's no way to actually peg it in. And although it is clearly molded, it's not just purely circular. There's actually like a portion of this that actually aligns with something in the beam, like right around here. There it is. It kind of locks in place. So it's like a groove, but it won't stick. You can come in there until the cows come home, but there is no way you're getting that thing stuck in here for good. Even sticky tack I once used didn't even do the trick. So NECA's beam is just very, it's very unsturdy. And, you know, the option is there. You just have to be very careful with it. Now, HIYA's one is a bit more complex. You want to actually just... Ow. Ow! It bit me. I closed it on my finger as I was going to close it. Ow. So, you want to just take off the head like that and shear off these three pieces. Put this alternate neck part on, the one that's looking like that, and then you want to put this head piece on like that. So you can get an effect that looks like he's looking straight up into the air, almost like he's doing the King of the Monsters pose, or he's recreating that scene from vs. Kong where he's underneath the aircraft carrier. Then you want to make sure that this is pointing towards like this, almost like an L. That's a bit crooked. And put it like that, and boom. You got your Godzilla spewing the beam. Now, as far as like critiques go, I don't really have any critiques with this in particular, aside from the fact that the beam is a bit too off-centered from the mouth, because it doesn't look like it's shooting from the throat. I know it's literally jabbed into his mouth, but it looks like it's coming from the tongue because of the way it's positioned. See, it should be coming like that, not like that. It's a bit too acute of an angle. Is that the right term? I don't know, I forgot what I was taught in math. But with that being said, I have no complaints with this, other than one. This is it. This is literally it. Now hold the horses. If you mess around with it, you can get this head on the little sleeves, but the problem with that is that the head itself, it's too heavy. And whenever you try to like even do like a basic rotation, it might work at first glance, but it's going to pop off because the beam itself is not designed for, well, the neck isn't designed for this beam. Not to mention, you can clearly see like it's off center. At least NECA's was centered. So really, it all depends on which one you prefer. And as for the amount of accessories, HIYA comes with like one more, but then again, can you really count a neck piece a superior accessory to an impact base? See, the NECA's thing is back at it again. Loosey-goosey. So, really, it all depends on what you prefer. And also, see, it doesn't keep its pose. So while both figures come with a good amount of accessories each, and both have their ups and downs, NECA's connection is not very good, but the actual, what it can pull off is really good. And because you have to tap an articulation, you can actually get a bit more range, while the HIYA is meant to look cool in one certain position, and you can blast it like this. Yes, you absolutely can. But when you go to turn the head, it has a much greater chance of popping off. And these sleeves are not designed to carry that weight. And not to mention, it's just going to keep going whenever you pose it a little bit up. So, with that being said, I got to go with the NECA on this one. Because of the articulation that taps into it. You can actually turn that head. And even though it is loose, it is manageable. This, can you really call that one manageable? So yeah, the NECA wins that point. Round 5, price. Oops. Both of them are known to be the cheaper side of collectibles, but one is cheaper than the other. I'm going strictly based off retail price, by the way, not aftermarket, retail. He was about 20, 25 bucks. He is about 40 to 50 bucks. There is no contest. The NECA is half the price of what HIYA is, and the NECA wins at this point. Round 6 is going to be availability, and we can look at this as either one of two ways. One, when both of these figures were released, what major retailers they were at, and how available they were actually, like in terms of online stores, or we can look at them now, specifically December 2023 or whatever. That being said, because this guy's discontinued, unfortunately, still breaks my heart to say 3 days later, years later. Because he is discontinued, he isn't available at any major retailers anymore. Toys R Us, Target, Walmart, they're all stocked out. He is available, or is going to be available, at maybe at major retailers. I don't know if you are available at major retailers yet, but you are on BBTS. That's like one of the biggest, most popular collectible toy stores of all time online. But if we want to judge it purely on when they were actually at, NECA still wins from, let's say, his initial release versus his initial release. Let's say they were both released at the same time, same retailers, yada yada yada. He would have still won because he actually did go to Toys R Us, things like Best Buy too, and all the other major retailers. I don't think he did. So that being said, he technically takes that win, but again, that was 3 years ago, at minimum. Incoming 4. Time flies by fast, doesn't it? So really, that one's up to speculation because he is, because he is discontinued. I'm going to leave it as a tie, unequilibrium, or equilibrium, I mean to say. And round 7 is boxes. Now, cool art makes a whole difference, yes. And as for art, the HIYA Toys definitely has the better art because it actually features some art, like via for the beam, comes with a like nice display, like blue box and everything. I don't have the NECA Godzilla box anymore, but what I can tell you for a fact is that it's followed the style guide of the movie, and it was overall pretty plain when compared to the other King of the Monsters figures that were released around the time. Not just exclusive to NECA, but also Jack Specific, and other brands, I think. What other brands picked up the license for KO2 at the time? Can't remember. But that being said, his box wins out a little bit thanks to the fact that it was 5-panel. There was a door, so you could actually. I'm gonna use one of this guy's box for example. Moving him out of the way. It was 5-panel, so you had the art here, and then you could actually open it up and see the actual figure inside, and you could actually see what you were getting before you bought it in specific. So you could check for things like quality. Because what if I buy a HIYA T.O.S.G Godzilla and it has a very major paint defect right here? Do I want to buy it? I can't tell because the only way to know what's actually in it is if you open it up. That is a major problem because if the same thing happened with me and this NECA Godzilla, say if there was a big defect here, I went to pick it out, open up the door, there's going to be that one, so I'm going to want the cleaner one if there's more in stock. So with that being said, I feel like packaging, while it is cool that he gets art, I feel like for the consumer, he is more visible for what you can buy, so he's definitely the winner of that aspect. So that's it. Let's do it. Tie up the scores. There was a tie point for sculpt and paint. Articulation went to the HIYA. Size went to NECA. Accessories went to I think it was the NECA. Yeah, I think it went to the NECA. There was pretty much a price point for the NECA. Actually, I'm going to reconsider accessories just to be a tie point, unless we already gave it a tie. I actually completely forgot about that. Okay, so initially I did give the point to NECA, but instead we're going to actually round up to a tie. So it's sculpt and paint for a tie. Articulation went to HIYA. Size went to NECA. Accessories went to a tie. Price went to the NECA. Availability went to a tie due to the fact that one is discontinued. And packaging went to the NECA. So that to score 4-6, the NECA is the winner. I know. I am such the professional here. But here's the thing. I am not saying that it is the better figure. In fact, I would say in a lot of aspects, he is better than him. Which one do I prefer overall? It's kind of impossible for me to answer because both of them are so similar. It's just that one is larger than the other. One has more paint than the other. They're both equal as far as posability goes. Their accessories are just their atomic blasts, just with one has this and then the other has an alternate head. That's basically the thing. They're so evenly matched. They're so similar in a lot of ways, and the opposites cancel each other out. But as far as the point by point blow basis, in my opinion, the NECA is the winner here. And even then, there was a lot of reconsideration because the tie for accessories went to the NECA initially. However, really considering how the HIYA can move as well, it's pretty much impossible for me to give the point strictly to NECA, even if it's by a smidge. But factoring in really everything, as far as the quality of the figure goes, it is very subjective. Because I could easily prefer this over this. I mean, I'm blinded by nostalgia when it comes to this. I mean, at least NECA bothered to paint their gills, while HIYA didn't. But really, it all comes down to you. Which one of these two figures do you think is better? The NECA or the HIYA? With that being said, the NECA is the winner of this one, but that does not mean the HIYA is the worst figure of all time, nor does that mean it's the inferior figure of the two. I'm just saying, as far as the point by blow basis goes, he is the winner. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys liked it, definitely subscribe to this channel. Believe in Jesus, accept him as your Lord and Savior today, spread the gospel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, everyone. God bless.